1 week after ending its skid on the road, South Dakota looked to reestablish its dome field advantage. How's everybody doing? I'm Jay Elsen, and this is Coyote Corner. Well, USD had history in its favor Saturday as it looked to win its 13th consecutive home opener. But it was the streak they didn't have that figured to play a much bigger role in the team's hopes for a successful season. In addition to a shot of confidence, a win over Drake would give the Coyotes back-to-back victories and its first plus 500 record since 2013. Saturday's showdown between the Coyotes and Bulldogs came 6 years to the day of their last meeting. USD put up 51 points in that one, and this would be another high-scoring affair. The first big play of the day, though, came from the defense. Jacob Warner picks off Cody Tebow, and how about this return? Hurdles a man on his way to the Drake 1-yard line. Third INT in the last 2 games for Warner, and it set up this. Trevor Bama with a 1-yard plunge, and USD is up 7 early. 10-0 Coyotes in the second, and Bama gets back at it. All kinds of room off the right side. 10 yards for his second score of the day, extending the South Dakota lead to 17. But the big plays were just beginning. USD's found something with Paul Anderson, the redshirt freshman proving pretty electric in the return game. He averaged 16 yards on 4 punt returns before leaving the game with a concussion. Defensively, more good stuff from Andrew Van Ginkel. That's the first of his 2 sacks on the day. He's got 3 now in the last 2 games. All of that contributed to good field position for the offense, and Ryan Sager and company continued to make the most of it. Sager to a wide-open Nick Meyer, 35 yards for the score. USD up 31-0 at the half. And the Yotes picked up right where they left off to start the third quarter. Sager looking deep again. Picture-perfect pass to Brant Van Rukel. One of his team-high 3 catches on the day. 38-zip Coyotes at that point, and they go on to blank Drake for their first shutout since 2011. 52-0 is your final. Van Ginkel led the way defensively for USD, while Trevor Bama paced an impressive ground attack with his second straight 100-yard effort and 3 more touchdowns. Coyotes close the non-conference season in style and head into the bye week with a record of 2-1.
You know, last year was kind of, we came out flat against William Penn a little bit, and they hung around and made it a game, and we didn't want to do that this week. We challenged a lot of position groups, offensively speaking, the offensive line. They held UND to 25 yards rushing last week, and, you know, we couldn't allow that, and O-line did a great job tonight.
It's just great being able to come out and play to the best of our ability and to stop them. They've been in the end zone a few times, and just coming out with no points on the board was great. Just good for our team.
It's probably the most points I've seen on this board since I've been here, and that's a huge accomplishment to the offense, the defense, and the special teams. This is definitely a team win all around, and that 0 on the other team definitely helps us offense a lot. And coaches did a great job scheming it up this week. We knew we could out-physical them. And we just went out there and executed today.
Now, as you can imagine, Joe Glenn was a happy man after that performance. So happy that he serenaded our Carla Metz with the school fight song.
So yippee-oh, here we go forward today. South Dakota victory. C-O-Y-O-T-E-S. C-O-Y-O-T-E-S. Go Yotes!
That is some classic TV, and while there would be no more singing during our weekly conversation, the Coyotes head coach did offer up plenty of praise for his team's effort. We'll share that right after this.
Coyote Corner on Midco Sports Network is presented by Dakota Land Honda.
And welcome back to Coyote Corner, joined now down at the Dakota Dome by head coach of the University of South Dakota, Joe Glenn. And Joe, I know you really wanted to get this football game against Drake because you were at home and all the pomp and circumstance that surrounds the home opener. But to me, it seemed at least more important coming off that win over Davis the week before to get this one just for momentum. As you roll into the bye, you roll into the conference season, you've really got that team's confidence about as high as it's been in quite some time now.
You said the big word, momentum. That is such a huge word in all sports, and certainly football. And we needed to try and find some momentum from this game going forward, and we got it in spades. It was a good game for us to play. think we caught Drake a little off guard. I anticipated playing well. I thought even in practice and maybe some things I saw at Cal Davis that our athleticism is starting to show more and more.
Sure.
That's the way it unfolded.
Well, early on, you got a spark by your defense. It actually took the offense a little bit of time to get into a rhythm on Saturday, but then Jacob Warner gets his third pick in 2 games. That sets up Trevor Bama for a 1-yard touchdown, and just like that, things started clicking on the offensive side of things.
Sure did. Jacob Warner's playing really well, and those are some big picks that he's come up with. And then he had a big hurdle, jumped over a guy on the way down to the 1, and then Bama took it in over the left side, and the race was on.
Really, that kind of set the tone for the day because you got three more takeaways, so you've got 7 now in the last 2 games, and you turned 2 of them this week into touchdowns. Last week at Davis, you got the 4, just 3 points off of those, so improvement in that area.
Well, we're getting really terrific pressure from our front 4 on the quarterback. We got the rest of the guys all in the throwing lanes doing a great job of tipping balls, batting balls, intercepting balls. So I'm really happy with what the defense is doing regarding pass defense. And a little bit funny about what we gave up rushing, but it was still only 3 yards of rush, and we're working that pass rush pretty hard. So they can focus on maybe the run stop this week if they want.
Yeah, well, you mentioned getting your hands on passes. I think you deflected 10. That's a big number on any week. Another big day on the offensive side, Joe, for the running game as well. They roll up 296 yards rushing against the Drake defense that had surrendered just 25 yards the week before at UND. Bama got a lot of the glory, of course, because the running backs do, but that offensive line, they certainly deserve some recognition. How do you feel about the way that group has come together?
Well, real good. And even as the game went on, they got better and better. Drake was throwing the kitchen sink at us early on in the game. That's why we were struggling a little bit with the run early, but I thought our quarterback, Ryan Sager, did a good job as a field general, and as the game wore on, I thought the O-line started to wear them down. I thought they started to pick up the stunts and the twists and the blitzes that they were running, trying to shut down our running game. So all of them played, I think all but 2 played, so and you got to throw the tight ends in there and Drew Potter in there. They all pitched in and really worked hard on establishing the run.
Drake knew what was coming. They knew you were going to try and run the ball, and that's why they stacked the box like they did. Well, that led to something else in that we hadn't seen from this offense so far this season, and that was the home run ball. Ryan Sager, a couple of long touchdown passes to Nick Meyer and Brant Van Rukel in this one. What was there in this matchup that maybe wasn't there the first couple of weeks?
Well, they were putting more guys into the box, and I thought Coach Basharner did a nice job of finding a couple big plays that would work. And 88, Brant Van Rukel, he's a strider, and he's 6'4", and he's got long arms, and he ran a post route, and wow, did Ryan feather that one in there perfectly. Hit him right on the goal line, and it was a beautiful pass. Then we ran a sprint out and put a wheel route with it, and don't look now, Nick Myers, senior, wheeled around, and he threw another strike right on the money, right on the run. So those are passes that maybe in the past we haven't been hitting. They've always been there, but for whatever reason, we'd overthrow them or underthrow them. But even in practice, we're hitting those throws, and I put a lot of that credit on our quarterback and our protection. But Ryan Sager he's the field general for us right now, and he's running the show. And
it's never bad to be two-dimensional, right? And that's
right.
going to make teams both respect you both on the ground and through the air. Well, defensively, Joe, to kind of wrap things up here, we've talked about the takeaways that you got, but how about pitching your first shutout since 2011? That's always a great thing to see as a football coach, a 0 under that other team's name.
It's hard to do. I know after we played Kansas State, Bill Snyder did an interview, and he said, it's really hard to shut somebody out. And they got it done against us, and we moved the ball a lot, but we just didn't have good field position. This time, we had the field position. Right. Drake didn't, and we got it done, and it was just a fabulous day for the Coyotes. Big crowd, veteran football players back, 05 team championship. Right. Fun time at Coach Glenn's house after the game with all those people visiting.
All right, Joe. Well, thanks so much for the time. Congrats on the big win, 52-0. Again, the Coyotes go to 2-1 on the season. The bye is up next. You're going to hear more from Coach Glenn coming up in a bit. But first, Andre Fields will join us to talk about Saturday's storylines.
Coyote Corner on Midco Sports Network is presented by Dakota Land Honda.
Welcome back. Well, the wins don't get a whole lot more convincing than that. And for the story behind USD's 52-0 drubbing of Drake, we bring in Midco SN analyst Andre Fields. Andre, time for Saturday's storylines. And for the second straight week, the Coyotes really set the tone on the ground. USD ran for 296 yards against what appeared to be a pretty stout Bulldogs run defense. Remember, this is a team that had held UND to 25 yards on the ground the week before. And it seems like the Coyotes, and in particular that offensive line, took that number a little personally.
Yeah, they did. I'm sure watching the film all last week against UND, they saw what Drake was doing to slow that run attack down, and they said, not going to happen here this week. We want to establish a running game. We talked earlier in the preseason, Jay, about how Coach Glenn wanted to establish a running game this season heading into the Valley. For the last 2 weeks, they've really showed that this is going to be a point of emphasis, and we're going to make it happen this year.
And how about Obama, 186 last week, 117 on the ground plus 3 more touchdowns.
Yeah, and we talked about how this was the Bomber that we expect. When he's healthy, this is what he can do for your offense. And hopefully he stays healthy and continues this trend into the Valley.
And we need to give him a little credit for the pass protection as well, Ryan. Sager was able to stay upright on Saturday. They threw for 157 yards and a couple of touchdowns. So really solid all the way around for that pass and ground protection up front. Well, Drake knew what USD wanted to do on Saturday. They tried to stack that box as best they could to stop it, but that, of course, left them a little vulnerable on the back end, and the Coyotes certainly took advantage of that with those 2 long touchdown passes. And I think this was important, Andre, because we hadn't really seen USD test it downfield to this point in the season, and there's definitely some value in proving that you can do it.
Yeah, absolutely, because if you can't do it, then you become a one-dimensional offense, and teams can just dictate to you what they're going to do. They're going to pin their ears back and just come at you, maybe switch some things up in the secondary. But by showing that you can go deep and showing that you can protect Ryan Sager, give him time in the pocket to get deep balls out like he did, it shows that they are two-dimensional. Now you add that dimension in on film, so teams watching them going forward are going to say, okay, we can't stack the box to stop Bama. We're going to have to play it honest, and their USD can dictate to them what's going to happen offensively.
Yeah, maybe one of the most valuable tools in football is that film, both to study your opponent and to let your opponent know what you can do and what they need to respect. And so certainly teams are going to have to take notice of that going forward when it comes to the Coyotes. Well, defensively, no question, the biggest story of the day was the shutout. We heard Joe Glenn talk a little bit earlier about how hard that is to do, regardless of who the opponent is. It was the first time the Coyotes had held an opponent scoreless since 2011, and this is validation, at the very least, that this is not the defense of 2014.
Yeah, and coming into the season, switching to a 4-3 defense in order to stop the run, get more pass rush. So far, it's working out just perfectly for Coach Petrino. And I think the key here, Jay, is like you said, finishing the shutout so easily. Do defenses usually let up at the end when they have such a big lead? You got the second team guys in, they're starting to give up a little bit of ground, and it's easy to give up the shutout, but to continue to push forward and actually keep that goose egg on the screen, huge for the defense and huge for Coach Petrino, because this is a new defense.
Yeah, you could really see how badly they wanted to keep that on Saturday, because remember, Drake blocked that punt. They took over the ball at the USD 10-yard line. One play later, Andrew Van Ginkel forces the fumble. They get it back. And then later, Drake moves it again into USD territory as a short field goal attempt, and they blocked the kick. So it was just effort down the stretch that sealed that shutout for USD. Well, we mentioned it right there, Andrew Van Ginkel. He's the guy that really spearheaded that defensive effort on Saturday. He's just a redshirt freshman, but how about this stat line? Van Ginkel finishes with 3.5 tackles for loss, 2 sacks, a forced fumble, and a blocked field goal. Efforts like that obviously make it awfully easy to see why the Kyle coaching staff is so excited about this young guy.
Yeah, and the fact that he's a redshirt freshman and he's for 3 games now made impact plays defensively. So he is living up to the hype, so to speak. I like the fact that this young man maybe doesn't even have the size yet. Yes, he's a redshirt freshman, but he's going to continue to get bigger, stronger, faster. And if he's making these types of plays now, imagine what he's going to do later in the season, years to come. And hey, he's from Rock Valley. He has the long locks. He kind of reminds me of somebody.
Yeah, right?
I don't know.
We keep talking about it. And honestly, Curtis and I talked about that during the broadcast on Saturday. Not fair, really, to him to compare him to Tyler Starr. But at the same time, it's hard not to, based on his skill set and his physical build.
Well, and I don't think he's going to mind being compared to him either. He is a professional athlete, and if he can follow in those footsteps, that means he's having an outstanding career. Hopefully he does that.
All right, Andre, we'll appreciate your time once again. Always a little more pep in his step when we're talking about a 52-0 win. All right, well, stay tuned. The road through the Missouri Valley Football Conferences figures to be every bit as difficult for USD in 2015. We're going to take a look at how things are shaping up around the league when we come back.
Coyote Corner on Midco Sports Network is presented by Dakota Land Honda.
With the non-conference portion of their season now in the books, the Coyotes are shifting their focus to the always powerful MVFC, which features 6 of the top 25 teams in the nation. According to the latest Stats FCS poll, 4 of those teams are in the top 7. North Dakota State comes in at number 3. Illinois State is 4th, with South Dakota State at 6th and UNI at number 7. Coyotes, who are also receiving votes themselves, will face 5 of those 6 teams during the conference season, beginning with 13th-ranked Youngstown State on October 3rd. And Joe Glenn says everything his team does over the next 2 weeks will be geared toward getting ready for Bo Pelini and the Penguins.
The kids got, I always call it a spring in their step, but they feel good about themselves right now and seem to be hitting on most all cylinders. Certainly there are things we can do better, and we all know that. They've seen the film. They know we can improve. So we'll work on that, trying to get better each week, and but build for this game a week from Saturday against Youngstown State.
All right, that game again coming up Saturday, October 3rd at the Dakota Dome. We will preview the matchup with the Penguins on next week's episode of Coyote Corner. Coming up, Derek Chancellor shelved his shoulder pads this summer in favor of a suit and a stint with a U.S. Senator. Alex Heinert has that story next.
Coyote Corner on Midco Sports Network is presented by Dakota Land Honda.
Welcome back. Well, Washington's Capitol Hill might be a long way from Old Main and Vermilion, but that's where USD offensive lineman Derek Chancellor called home this past summer. For more on the 3-year starter's time in D.C., here's Alex Heinert.
At first glance, USD offensive tackle Derek Chancellor might not strike you as the political type. At 6'5" and 300 pounds, the 5th-year senior from McCook, Nebraska looks more like a member of the Secret Service than a candidate for office. But don't be deceived by appearances. Even if standing for an election might not be in his immediate future, Chancellor is big into government and the national political scene and has been as long as he can remember.
Since I was a kid, I've always been interested in the presidents and everything political about government and everything like that. Going to college, I knew I wanted to be a history major. I actually came here as just a history major and picked up a double major with political science after I took my first American government class here. Just loved it.
After completing his undergraduate degree this past spring, Chancellor was encouraged by his academic advisor to pursue a summer internship with U.S. Senator John Thune's regional office in Sioux Falls. After the initial interview, however, Chancellor got a phone call he wasn't expecting.
The recording of the interview actually got sent to Washington, and they were impressed by the interview's recording and called me up, made sure everything was, made sure it wasn't a fluke or anything, made sure I was a nice, decent guy, and they said, you got the position here in D.C. if you want it. And so I thought it was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. I couldn't turn it down.
Chancellor's choice to accept the position in Washington might have been a no-brainer, but with Vermilion and the Yotes football team now 1,200 miles away, keeping up with off-season workouts would prove harder than normal.
I knew what I was missing out on, because I'd been here every summer, but it was tough, not being around the guys and everything. First thing I did when I got out to D.C. was Google map the local high school, so I could get a football field and work out and do my drills and everything.
While in D.C., Chancellor's internship allowed him to do a bit of everything.
I would do all sorts of stuff. I'd give tours of the Capitol. One of the main things I did was I would look at Senate floor speeches from the day before, the transcripts of those speeches, and I would categorize them. I would tag them as to what every speech was talking about. I would go to the senators' websites and look up op-eds and press releases for our website. Just all sorts of stuff, different things every day and the same things every day a lot too.
Working in the fast-paced environment of Washington wasn't always easy, but Chancellor wouldn't have wanted to be anywhere else.
The best part about it was just the professional environment, interacting with big-time senators in the country, and just being involved in Washington on Capitol Hill. I worked in the Senate office building connected to the Capitol, so that was an amazing thing to witness and be around.
Now that his internship has wrapped, Chancellor is back in school. He's currently working on his master's in public administration and back to football. His return to the right side of the Coyote offensive line after missing the second half of last season with the broken leg is a big reason for USD's strong start. But despite his success on the field and his obvious love for the game, Chancellor knows that his future lies in a different arena. And maybe, just maybe, you'll see his name on a ballot someday.
Football doesn't last forever, and you hear that a lot of times, but it's the truth. So far, I just let my interests guide me, and I think city manager or something would be something I'd be interested in, but I think working in D.C. at some point in my life, I'd be interested in that too.
Well, Chancellor's future might be in government, but playing football at a high level still very much in his present. Derek was named the Missouri Valley's Offensive Lineman of the Week thanks to his part in USD's 52-point, 296 rushing yard performance versus Drake this past weekend. It's not too bad for a politician, Jay.
Yeah, not bad at all. All right, that is our time for this week. For Alex Heinert, I'm Jay Elsen. Remember to bring it back here next week for a special bye-week edition of Coyote Corner.